Nice big tiger. Oh, no, and made it. All right, Tiger, you know the arrangement. If I could make it to this episode without you catching me, I'd take you to Outback Steakhouse. I'll see you there. Get out of here. Today's episode features Jeremy Scott Olsen, a sound and music creator in LA with whom I worked on a video game for Ludum Dare 52, which is an international online game jam. Mr. Olsen has already had an amazing career in audio so far, working for over a decade on a suite of Seth MacFarlane shows, including Family Guy, American Dad, The Cleveland Show, and The Orville. Not to mention his ADR work on a long list of hugely popular TV shows, including Riverdale, Pretty Little Liars, Cobra Kai, The Loudest Voice, Cosmos, and I'll stop there because the list is long. Go check out his IMDb page to see the stuff he's put his name on because it is extensive. In addition to all this, JSO has started Bad Self Music, a forward-thinking record label centered around pop, rock, video game music, TV and film scoring, and modern classical. If you're a serious artist that fits one of these categories, you should go to badselfmusic.com and reach out to Jeremy because he is an absolute pleasure to work with. So let's go listen to me talk to him. Yeah. So my guest today is Jeremy Scott Olsen, which I have now just shorthand. You're just JSO now. So we work together on a game jam. Now I don't even know how to pronounce it. Ludum Dare or Dare?
Ludum Dare. I mean, I wasn't around when Latin was being spoken, but that's what I assumed.
Okay. Yeah. So we worked on a game called Hair Runner together. What we in audio? It was a team of 10 people from all around the world. Had it was 4 or 5 audio people.
Yeah, 5. It was 5 of us, right?
Yeah. And what did we place? 32nd or some kind of percentage?
Something like
you
36.
Had a stat.
Yeah, it was 30, top 3%, and it depends how you measure.
Top 3%.
But yeah, 3% in audio, and pretty much all the stats were top 20% for just whatever. I think there might be 1 or 2 that were not great, and then grain of salt with all, whether I don't care if it's the Oscars or a game jam score. There's grain of salt with everything because the way anything is scored, it can be pretty ridiculous. But top 3%, I feel pretty good about that.
And it's one of these global, not the global game jam, but it's one of these game jams that are international,
online and very large.
Yeah,
thousands.
And so it's like lots and lots of entries. So it's and that whole team was just really. I've done a lot of game jams where things fall flat. Most of them actually, but this was one of these teams that like look at the splash art it's on my website now. But
it's incredible, isn't it?
Oh, it's like she put up she sent the splash art to the Discord and everybody was like, whoa. So it's one of these teams that like makes you work harder because of the quality that you're seeing from everybody else, right?
Absolutely right.
And you were the first face I saw. We got into the team, and like we sort of had this. We jumped on a Discord meeting, and I immediately just felt super welcome, and like you just kind of dived into like working on stuff and going, okay, here's what we're doing, and it's like we had been working together for years, which I appreciated. So,
likewise, right? I mean, you just kind of dove in and fit right in and got to work.
Yeah, easy. Yeah, so like I asked you to do this podcast kind of just based on working with you on that jam. And then I went and I researched you a little bit and I was like, whoa, oh, all right. I was like, he's already agreed to it. I have to. But no. So you are mainly, would you call yourself an ADR professional? Like are you sort of in the like that specific realm, or would you just say audio, or how would you describe yourself?
I go with music and sound, even though music is a very small part of it. I want it to be a larger part, and I do try to do what little things I can in music, and I love it.
Yeah.
And music has even been a part of some of my professional sound work. It's been slightly music oriented in one way or another. So, sound and music, because I don't put a real limit on what I do. If it looks like I can do the job, I'll do it.
That's a good way to go about it, I think.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to skip around a little bit, but like, so for example, we rescheduled just to get an idea for people. We rescheduled this a couple times just because the first time you had what you called a truck day, and you were working on. Am I allowed to say what you're working on? By the way,
I won't mention anything to you that you can't say. Yes, so anything you know about you can share. There are a few things. All
right, cool.
I'm really dying to tell you that I'm not going to be able to tell you.
Right, okay, yeah.
Which sucks, but...
Yeah, we rescheduled the recording of this podcast because you had a truck day on while you were working on Riverdale, and it was going to be hard to predict like when the actors came in to do ADR. Can you talk about that just a little bit as like a little kind of splash introduction to,
totally,
day in the life?
Yeah, this is a day in my kind of current life. We can get into my past lives if there's time and if you want, which is also dialogue oriented, but it's very different. But as of near the end of 2021, I kind of made the leap into live action post production, and the large bulk of that has so far been ADR, and it's mostly ADR editing and ADR supervising. So Riverdale is one of those.
ADR stands for...
Yes, automated dialogue replacement, which is really interesting because most of us these days don't do it in any kind of automated way, but it can be, right? They call it looping because it would be beep, 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 do it, and then beep, 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 do it, and you would actually have a loop and get a rhythm. But most of the time these days, most actors are good enough at it that you don't need that, and you'd rather take that valuable time. Instead of having them do it 10 times in a loop, you're just going to take it once and say, I'm going to give you a few notes, and then they take the notes and do it better,
you say like most actors kind of do that.
Yeah, there's
commonplace now.
So I don't know. Are you expecting? Because if you're expecting, it depends how broad you expect your audience to be. But I want to add. I kind of feel like I need to add one more description of what ADR is.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Because then that informs the rest of this.
Absolutely.
But ADR is actors replacing their dialogue in the film, because a lot of what we hear in films was actually recorded along with the cameras by people with the boom microphones and basically a fancy tape recorder, digital now obviously, but on set wherever they shot. But sometimes that's noisy. Sometimes there's interruptions. Sometimes there's audio problems. Sometimes they want to change a word or a line afterwards. Sometimes somebody said the wrong words and they didn't catch it. Sometimes they were using a brand name that they realized later they can't use. There's no end to the number of reasons that you actually need to eventually do ADR. And then, so at the end of the process in post-production, ADR is part of that whole post-production stage, and it's the part where they say, okay, well, this actor needs to come in and do these lines, and they're going to send a movie that contains all those visuals, so they can see themselves saying those lines, and scripts and things for us to keep track of it and for them to read. And then they'll stand in front of a microphone, and they'll have usually the same microphones, the same kinds of microphones they have on set. One boom microphone, which is the one held on a long pole, and one lavalier, which is the one kind of clipped onto you or hidden in your clothing somewhere. And they will watch their lips and listen to what they did. And if it's an audio note, they're just literally trying to completely reproduce, mimic what they did. And if it's some other note, like a performance note, like, oh, we want this performance a little different, or we have to change words or something, then they do whatever they have to do for that. But they're basically watching themselves on screen and re-performing it in front of a microphone. So
do they get like and I'm just thinking of like from the musician's side of things, like being in a studio, like do they get a chance to practice that before coming into the studio? Like do they get the clips, or they're right in?
No. Yeah. They're right in.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's a weird. It's like a lot of audio seems to feel like ghost things that most people don't even realize exist or don't think about. Yeah. And ADR is definitely that, even for actors. Like, they know it exists, but some of them I think really wish it didn't. Some of them just accept that it does, but don't. I don't think put any extra consideration in it, or they're maybe I think for some actors they're going to be scared of it because it's not, they feel it's not their skill set. It is, and
I was going to say, it seems like a very different skill.
Absolutely. I make a comparison to this, actually. Being around writers for many years, I was always fascinated that you have to be a writer's assistant before you're a writer, because those are two very, 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 very different jobs, and it seems bizarre to require somebody to succeed at one before then succeeding at the other. And ADR is one of those. Like, you can be a great actor without having the ability to mimic your performance from a record. That's not. Yeah. It's not something you necessarily expect or something, but it is part of the job and the career. So it's kind of one of those things. Like, the more you just accept that and move on, and also really, frankly, realize that as sound people, the goal of this, like, we don't want to do any more work than we have to either. We're not here to just add work for ourselves. We are here to try and make the film better. And if the director says, just the way when the director tells an actor to do something, if the director is telling us to do something, if they're saying, oh, we need to loop this line, and they tell us why, we only argue so much, like if it's an audio problem, they may defer to us. Most of them would and say, you're the audio expert. You tell me what you need to do. There's not even communication about that. We just pick the lines that need audio work and say, this will be difficult in the mix, or we just can't hear this. But anything that's borderline questionable, anything that is performance or other special weird things, that all is, it's producers or directors are choosing this, and we're just doing our job, and the idea is it should all make the movie better. The audience being able to hear or understand things one way or another is paramount. I mean, dialogue is king. So that actor's performance will appear better if they sound better. It's because that's how our brains work. So that's I realizing now, like, this sounds like I'm bad-mouthing actors or something. Like, no, actually I've actually been shocked in my short time doing this is like full time. Like, I've done it a lot before, but only in the last year and a half has it been really kind of the big bulk of my career. And I'm just actors actually always surprise me how on average just tolerant and gracious and skillful they are. Somebody will come in for some tiny role, bit part, and just like nail the heck out of some difficult ADR, and you're like, wow, you people work so hard.
Now, do you find that the people that, like, is that more common for seasoned people, or are there people that, like, does it? I've never, like, had to do it, so I don't really know, like, how difficult it is. It just seems like it's like
it is difficult. But it's a learnable skill, but the thing is, I think it falls in the realm that music does. There are probably people out there who are truly tone deaf and literally can't hold a tune, for example, right?
Right.
And so maybe that person can't be taught music, but everybody else could be taught it, and it's just a matter of are they naturals, or is it very, very difficult for them, or somewhere in between? And I think ADR seems to be the same. Like, I was just the other day at a lunch and in a discussion with an actor who came in to do dozens of lines in ADR for the first episode of a show that she was now on. And everybody's already just like, wow, there's dozens of lines just for the one actor, and there's like hundreds of lines of ADR in this show. That's a lot. And so this actor comes in with like 50 or 60 lines to do, and they start the conversation, and it becomes clear she's never done ADR before.
Right.
And everybody, of course, just kind of like goes pale as a ghost. Like, oh God. It turned out, as she did it, she was just naturally good at it. And that comes from the skill sets of acting and being, kind of having acting chops. But I think also might tie in to musicality, for example. I mean, a lot of post people are musicians, and I think there's a lot of overlap with actors too, where you have musical training. Right. And just that ability to recognize rhythm and melody is kind of, like, that's what we're doing with speech mimicry is it. Like, I need to understand how these my part, this intonation of something fits into time, right? And into a bigger picture of something. So it's a different version of the same skill in a way. So I find that musical people are always better at it. And you often find, like, rappers, for example, can be amazing at it. Certain voice actors specifically, because they work primarily or only in voice, are just insanely good at it.
Well, and it's interesting because then it's like it's basically a click track, and then they do the line.
You get 3 beeps,
So it's like there's a little bit of like the rhythmic aspect there.
Right.
No, that's really interesting. Do you find that, like, and I just kind of thought, I'm dreading, like, I don't want this to go over, but I have all these questions now. They're just like sprouting off. Like first of all, how you said, like, the last year has been kind of like more picking up more of like ADR as far as your career. Is that, like, how long have you been doing ADR in general? Like,
there was 8. So let's go back to the previous gig. I'll just touch on it right now, and if you wanted to dive in it more, we can. Sure. But for 16, almost 16 years, I worked on Seth MacFarlane's cartoons. I started off as the assistant on Family Guy to the the man who records and edits the dialogue for Family Guy. And then when the Cleveland show started up, I did the whole run of that as that person. I became the lead, the person who records and edits the dialogue. And then when that ended, I moved over to American Dad, and that was actually more than half my time. By the time it was done, I did like 9 years on American Dad.
Wow, man.
So there was ADR. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
So ADR, the process of matching words to picture, I've been doing that on those shows since 2008 or so, probably. Okay. I don't know if I did as an assistant. I would record every now and then, but I don't know if I did an ADR. But 2008. So 15 years of doing it. But it was a small part of the job then. But then through working there, Seth would have us. He has just like so many creative leaders, has people he grows to trust. Once he's worked with you and he trusts you, he doesn't want to find new people. He just wants to keep working with the people he knows will do the job right.
Yeah, man.
Then the first time, because they already know how he works and right.
Yeah.
So, I ended up doing ADR on some of his other things, the Orville, and there's a limited series, Loudest Voice.
Don't worry, I have a list written down in case you can't remember.
You can tell me what I've worked on more better than I could tell you probably. Loudest Voice, I think it was HBO, and it was about Roger Ailes, Fox News.
Yeah.
Because he had a pretty big part in that, and so I was shooting ADR for some of his stuff, and then when I went freelance, I then had a bunch of that under my belt. At that point, it was comfortable and familiar, and so that was a easy thing to leap into.
Yeah, man. And you said like ADR was a small part of it. Were you audio editor? Like what was the rest of the bulk of?
Well, it's just that in animation,
I guess on the Cleveland show or whatever.
Yeah, no, on all three. I mean, Family Guy was the assistant, so that's a little different. Yeah. But right. I'm describing. His name is Patrick. He's still there. Amazing guy, awesome friend of mine, and just great dude. So it was assisting him. So it's what he did on Family Guy and still does, and then what I did on Cleveland Show and American Dad. The job was split into kind of two parts, and one part was recording all the dialogue, but very little of that was ADR with animation.
Oh yeah, it's
you recording voices first.
Yeah.
And so it's thought of as production dialogue recording because it is nothing else exists. It's like if you went out on a film shoot, right? You were there with the microphone recording that original audio. This is the original audio, but it's just done in a studio. Yeah. And so they usually do use the large diaphragm condenser microphones. We had Neumann TLM 193s, which I love. One of my absolute favorite voiceover mics, and mostly do one actor at a time. Every now and then we would do multiple, but it was mostly one actor at a time, standing in front of mic, reading their scripts, kind of one line at a time. Usually the typical voiceover procedure is like kind of they do 3 takes of a line. Director would then give some notes, and then okay, if they need to do it again, then we do 3 more, or we move on to the next line. And so it's this sort of linear process of just capturing line by line by line by line of whatever they have to record. So that was a large part of my day, and very little of that was ADR because ADR was only at the end of the process. And when they're like, "Oh, this joke isn't working, but we just can change this 1 or 2 words. We don't have to, change the way their lips move. So we're just going to insert new words, or same thing like a brand name or something. Oh, we can't say this brand name, so we're going to make up a brand name that sounds like it, and we just fit it in their mouth. Which especially with animation is a little extra forgiving. You can get away with a little more than seeing a real human mouth.
That's interesting. So like punch-ins and stuff like that, meaning like putting in one single word or something, would you have them do the whole line again, or like the word before and the word after kind of thing, or just literally the word and then I'm getting like a little bit like detailed question, but
no, but I mean I get it. That's all all this stuff is fascinating to me about ADR. Is
I love this.
The very short answer, and this kind of applies to both live action and animation, but you'll see the difference basically is as long as you to the extent that you can be confident your recording can reasonably well match what you're kind of punching into, then yes, you can punch in. Though typically you need a little on either side for the edit. Yeah. Right. But every now and then you actually literally don't even need that. Like I've had people just ADR one word if there's a nice clean, if there's air on both sides and the mouth shape makes sense. The thing is like it's not even just about the specific consonant. For example, if it ends and begins in an S or a T, you're often good.
I was going to say S's are
amazing.
The limited dialogue editing I've
S's
done
and F's.
S's are like
F's, right? Yeah, all that stuff. Fricatives. Is that, there's words for all the different.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, it's it all comes from language studies of how we produce language or our mouths, and there's plosives and sibilants and all those, right? Yeah, and so I can't remember what F's and
I didn't know there was more than plosive and sibilant.
Oh God, yeah, there's a lot, my friend. And then there's little subcategories of labial, dental, glottal.
What did you call it? Frickin' frackin'?
Yeah, fricatives. I think that's probably a kind of espresso drink or something, but I don't know.
Well, I got some homework to do on that. That's cool.
you come back and tell me what I got wrong.
Yeah.
But anyways,
it's
but even then, what you were saying before can make you say that S differently, and when you get to be really good at ADR, one of the things about being good at ADR mixing, being the recorder, the person who's recording it, is recognizing, okay, I need this in order to achieve this, and in that case, it's, for example, I have to get more than just that S. If they just say Stephen, I'm going to get a different S than if they say, where's Stephen? Stephen might be, so that might be all
exactly.
All you have. That might just kill you right there. So I'm going to get the where's Stephen in case that affects how
pitch too,
the difference.
Because if they're coming off a high energy line or
versus, exactly. See, you've already thought of these things too. Yeah, and not everybody does. That's the thing. You have to think of that while the actor's in the booth. You don't want to have to call actors back and pay another $1,000 just because.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is
you missed out
time.
Yeah. So you can punch things in, absolutely. That tends to happen with, at that point, it's with your star actors or your people who are like starring and producing, anybody who has a pretty large stake in the game and a really busy life. All your guest actors and all your minor actors, honestly, I just say, please give me the whole line or at least a sentence or, whatever kind of reasonable unit.
And that just ends up being quicker just to like.
Absolutely. Rather because even
chunk.
It's only even the people who have a lot of experience, they're not always realizing that. It depends how present they are, and it depends how much they think in terms of that sort of musicality. Some people, it's just I want the quickest way possible. Let's do this, and it's like you have to. No, actually, we just need a little bit more if you can. And then some people, you get just like all. We're a service industry, and just like all of that, it involves a little bit of education of the client, and so some people aren't really interested in, and that's okay. That they're just like, no, that you just tell me what to do and I'll do it. But some people, you see them like latch on, and then we watch them get educated, and then they're making those good decisions, which is really awesome. I love when you've worked with somebody a while and you see that they have learned the things you've not taught them, because I didn't say sit down, class. Right?
Yeah, but they're like, picked I want to do a good job at this, so I'm gonna.
I'll probably need the couple words. I'll just give you the whole sentence, and there's no arguing about it. They just do it, and it's like, oh, amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because again, it's not. I don't want to take you more time. I want a better result. That's all I'm here for. I want a better result. I want the best result.
That's part of being easy to work with, and I think that just be easy to work with. It's a good rule.
Yeah, it's oddly
meeting halfway.
Yeah, it's oddly. I think a lot of people really underestimate how important that is. It's funny that you hear most successful people say, "It's mostly not that I'm great. I'm good, but I'm just also I show up. I'm reliable, and I try not to be a jerk." That's actually the bigger part of the equation.
That seems to be what I've learned about every single industry in the world. Is just that's just how it works.
Well, think who do you want to be creative with, right? Who do you want to trust with?
Exactly.
Things that are vulnerable secrets. Basically, it's some of its emotion. Like actors in front of a microphone, it can get very vulnerable and emotional. They can be doing sex noises. They can be doing emotional speeches. That screaming, crying, and they just have to trust you and be okay and be comfortable there. It has to feel like a safe space, and it has to feel like you're not going to make them do more of that than you need to, and that you're a participant and a supporter, and you're helping them get to this end point, not an obstacle or something for them to be worried about. Or
has there been like moments, you said like the impassioned speech thing, like has there been moments where you've had to like be like, that was a really great take, but can you just back up like a foot and do it again?
Yeah, well, you've touched on something else. That's also part. Boy, so there's a whole broad range of skills we use that and situations we find ourselves in that we have to very quickly judge. Yeah. When do I speak up about this?
Right.
Or do I speak up about this?
Then, you're working with people that are well known, they're well respected, they're famous. Some of them, a lot of them. So it's like, I that would be hugely intimidating if I found myself in that position of just like. Yeah.
Yes, and then you do it enough, and you realize, they're professionals, right? They're just humans.
Right. That's true.
Like if I'm a beginner at ADR and I'm working with an actor who's been around 30 years and is famous, he was a beginning actor at some point, and it's probably to some extent, I do think we forget what it's like to be a beginner, but he was there, and he's still a professional doing a job, and so when it comes down to is, no matter what I'm worried about or afraid of or think I'm not capable or any of that stuff, I just have to do my best job and be a professional the best way I know how, and most other professionals accept that and recognize it without question. Like nobody looks at you and says, I wonder if he's a professional. Like you're sitting in the chair, you would be assumed to be a professional until you prove otherwise most of the time. So you just keep earning the name professional, and nobody will think you're not, because you are. If you're sitting in that chair, you are. You're getting paid to do the job. That's because it's professional. So, so the thing is, though, more than there is the factor of like, some people could be hard to work with, and that does happen more with total top A-listers, because they're so busy and they're so used to getting their way. Whether it's not their fault or anything, and it's not even necessarily a bad thing. I think it provides a certain kind of pressure that sometimes can be really great. It can lift everybody up to know, okay, we can get this on 2 takes. Like there's something about that can be amazing, but also can be awful. And it just depends what that person's attitude is. Are they gracious about it or not, right? But so aside from like touchy personalities or other things, it really just comes down to wasting time and money and energy, right? And any actor deserves the respect of knowing that if I let them go through a minute long of crying and it's all going to sound unusable, that's a disservice to them and to everybody in the booth, everybody who's with me. So I can think about all their effort, all their time, and that actor and them digging deep and putting out something really difficult that I know. So that's where your heart can start fluttering, is that moment that you make that decision, like, God, I'm going to jump in the middle of this emotional performance, or am I going to wait to the end? Because sometimes it's like, okay, well, so then you get the versions of this, like, okay, if I'm the mixer, I'm sitting with VO, for example, or ADR, you're sitting at a mixing board. Can I just fix this? And if I fix it in the middle, will it be worthwhile, right? And you make these snap-second judgments, and you do this all the time with VO and ADR, where it's like, oh, beginning of the line, too hot, right? That's a big one. Some actors are really even keel, and you have to goose them to get them, much above where they are. And some people, especially for really dramatic or really comedic roles, people can just go. Sometimes volume is their tool, right? And they're suddenly yelling, and so just sometimes you just have that moment, like, whoa, and you can right then, in that instant, decide to stop the take. Oh, I'm sorry. You raise your hand to make sure they can see you right away, and you have to talk back often, or you're judging. Oh, if I just fix the level, and this is say a long line, they're in a flow. Maybe I don't interrupt, and that's fine. We're gonna do more takes anyways. I'll get most of this. And but you make these judgments so fast because you don't want to sit and hem and haw, and you still need to stay. You can't even leave your own presence in the session to have this discussion with yourself. You just have to kind of instinctively decide. It has to
be like
and so that sort of decision that you just asked about, like that happens all the time in so many different contexts. That do I interrupt this, or do I give this feedback? Do I say this thing? Do I ask for this? Ask that I have, or is it just not important enough right now or at all, or is it something I can ask of in a better way but get the result I want? So
no, that's really cool. Like, this is already just like, I could stop it right there and it would be an amazing episode, but like that's awesome.
Cool. All right, see ya.
But like, so while and this is it'll change the order of like the questions and stuff, but like, while we're in the mode of talking about that, like, is there anything that it borders on me saying like who's a dick and who's not, but it's like less like that and more like what are some memorable moments of that kind of thing that you're allowed to talk about, I guess.
Oh my God.
And like, are you under an NDA for the rest of your life on certain projects, or like,
That's interesting.
I don't even know how to ask that.
Yeah. As a professional who still enjoys recording actors, I don't think I can tell my most interesting stories, and I know that's probably disappointing for people who are hoping for good stories, but it feels good to me
TMZ, but
to not fire myself from my career.
Yes. Yeah,
it's like it's just actors coming in there for this safe space, and I always have to give it to them. So there's anonymous, very generalized things that I can talk about that are just they're still. Yeah. I mean, I've recorded. Actually, no. This I can probably say if it's good and interesting things, I can probably say them. And one of them was, Kanye. God, recording Kanye. I'm going to use Kanye because at the time he was Kanye. I don't know if that's the proper. Anyway,
I don't even.
But he was Kanye at the time.
Was he Ye now?
Ye or Ye? I don't even know how to pronounce it because
I have no idea.
I don't follow him as a musician, but
I don't either.
But he was on the Cleveland show, and I actually felt very fortunate to get to record him rapping for the first of his appearances. And when he did it a second time, he was like, can I do this in my studio? And he took it home and did it in his studio. And it's like, that's cool. I get it, but I'm sad because it's like I just love interacting with really talented musicians that way, watching him go through his process and again just engineering this and being it's like top of your game moments. Like this guy records in wherever he wants and he's used to getting what he wants when he wants it. So being a dialogue person suddenly recording a musician, it really sticks a hot poker up your butt. Like wow, God, I'm gonna be on right. I have to be on and just watching him go through his process and everything was great. But so one of these songs that he was doing, because he was playing a locally famous rapper named Kenny West on the show, Kanye West, and he was releasing an album or something like that, and it just so happened he was standing there, he was performing this. He's like, God, man, this track is really reminding me of something on something I'm working on right now. I gotta show you guys, and I'll show you when I'm done. And he starts texting like his driver or one of his assistants or somebody to bring up his laptop.
Oh, okay.
And so after he got done recording his voiceover and his rap work for the session, he brought his laptop in to the studio and we're just sitting there listening to unreleased Kanye stuff, the tracks.
Yeah.
And so, that's... And
you're like, that's a pretty cool job.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that it's a job that people asked if I was sad to leave it, and the answer was yes, but not for those reasons. I've had enough crazy parties and celebrity things and whatever to last 10 careers. I'm not in it for that. It's just an amazing kind of cool bonus, and I've had much of it. It's all good, and I miss the people. I miss the people.
No, absolutely. I think that the people that are in it for that are gonna be not gonna be in it.
Exactly. No, they don't last long.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I've seen people get fired. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all at Fox you're in LA.
Yeah.
My closest brush with anything to do with Seth MacFarlane was seeing his parking space. The director at UNLV, Dave Loeb, he used to be the piano player for all the Family Guy sessions.
Oh yeah. I might have met him on one. That's cool.
Yeah, probably.
Wicked really good. Like,
he's
absurdly
insane.
Good musician.
No, like I remember. So I did a pedagogy class with him in my second year of my master's, and it was one of the assignments was like write a curriculum based around technology that you could use in the classroom, like newer technology. And I brought in part of it was I brought in the sight reading machine. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's just like an app that like generates music randomly. It might be called something else now. It was like maybe an early version of it, but it would just give you like 4 bars at a time and give you a little ticker.
I could use a little of that in my life every day.
But yeah, it was only like a few bars at a time, and then it would flip. So, and he's like sitting with a grand piano, like looking over his shoulder, having a full conversation, sight reading like this stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously, like when one of your gigs is going in and sight reading all this stuff for the Family Guy sessions. I was just gonna say, because you had mentioned like, you know, Seth like keeps the people going that he wants to work with and everything, and like, you know, I met Dan Higgins. It was funny because Dave is like everybody's dad, right? So it's me and two other grad students come down. Dave's going, "Hey, this is one of my students. Give him a clarinet to hold. I'll take your picture." So there's a picture of me holding Dan Higgins' clarinet, like. But no, I'm looking around at like all these amazing people, and it was first time in that studio was pretty cool too, because it's like this, you know, the control room's like the Enterprise. But yeah, it was it just struck me as like, someone had mentioned, someone in passing, I don't remember who, was just like this it's pretty impressive that this gig is here, because Seth made sure of it, you know? And I don't know, I really appreciate that. You know, musicians, right? We're sort of worried about the future a little bit these days. But yeah, so I mean, that can segue kind of into where you started, and like all this stuff like that led you to do this kind of work. Yeah, I don't even know where to start. So can you just rewind to just...
So I'm from the East Coast, but then around 4th grade, I moved out to Northern California, and I was there through the end of high school. And it was in 4th grade that I started drumming, just school band, you know. And then 6th grade or 7th grade, somewhere there, I started taking drum set lessons. I got a drum set for, you know, like the cheap generic sort of drum set for birthday or Christmas from my parents. And that went in the garage, and I'd bang around there all the time and took lessons, and just eventually got good at that. I was never a phenomenal drum set drummer, but you know, it was fun. It was just really fun, and music just always spoke to me. Sometime in high school, I started to discover like the really early version of Cubase before it was Cubase. Like I can't ever remember what it's called, but it was like, you know, little dots and lines that you were arranging music, composing music. And
this is a software program for our listeners.
Yeah, that's as close as I can get. It's software for composing, and really, really, really early on a PC, my dad's PC that was upstairs, and also at some point near the, I'm gonna say, last couple of years of high school, last year, my dad got me a 4-track, and I just remember kind of starting experimenting with that and think, oh, this is fun, doing stuff backwards and all this sort of thing, you know. And then, but all that just kind of simmered. I went into college as a computer science major, and to do this super, super quick version of one of my favorite stories to tell people is basically just, I got stuck one night on like a 30-line sort algorithm. It was some program I was supposed to write to like put things in alphabetical order, or you know, or whatever, some just stupid basic freshman year stuff.
Okay.
And across the hall from me was my friend Gary, who in his freshman year was, and this is not not joking or exaggerating, he was designing a virtual reality programming environment in which to create virtual reality operating systems.
Okay. What year was this?
This is his freshman year too.
But like around
1994.
94. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's a little,
right.
Pretty ambitious.
Yeah. So
it's ambitious nowadays.
Right. So, and he comes over and I was like, here, I need your help. And look, in 15, I struggled for hours. And 15 seconds later, he saw the answer. He saw what I was messed up. I was just like, God, it's not for me. I'm not even enjoying creating my stupid little program. And then I kind of suck at it. So I think I should do something else. So I found music education. Teaching was something that I just kind of had in the back of my mind, always knew I enjoyed, but just hadn't really thought about pursuing. And I had a friend who was a music ed major, so I had gotten to see a lot of her like homework and class load, and everything I saw. Anytime she was talking about her classes, when she was in, anytime I would see her homework, I was just like, this is cool. I like this. So I did that, and I finished off as music ed. Did 2 years as a high school band director. Probably shouldn't have started as high school band director, but burned out hard. I was doing like 100-hour weeks. And just like by the end of it, I was just I'm done. I'm doing these kids a disservice, and I'm not. And I was like slowly killing myself. So I kind of plummeted off the edge into no career, and was like, God, I don't even know what to do next now. Like, what do you do when you did 4-year college, right? For something, and you're not going to be that thing. What do you do? And I was unemployed, worked in warehouse. I tried substitute teaching just to fill the gap, because it was the skill I had at the time. I worked at a warehouse. I went back to school for recording for 1 year. I did a 1 hour year recording art certificate at a place called Citrus College in Azusa. It's on the border of Azusa and Glendora. And it actually was excellent, especially paying community college rates. But they had just gotten this huge grant from Sony and made these incredible recording studios. Nice. Really incredible mic lockers. They had I want to say it was a euphonics board in one room, which is the precursor of the S6, all the Avid boards. And they had was it a Neva and SSL? I can't remember now, but I think it was one of just the top main analog boards in the other room. They had a Studer 24 track. They had DA88s and 98s, the big fancy digital tape machines. They had a great locker full of really top-notch microphones. And the biggest studio could hold 20 or 30 musicians. It was amazing. So, nice. So great program, but mostly music focused. And at that point, I'm like, God, well, I do love recording. I've always loved. I've been recording myself for fun for years now on my 4-track, and starting to discover software like Pro Tools and everything. And so that I kind of started with that direction. But then I did internships, and I realized, God, so I could intern at a terrible studio and hope to work at a terrible studio. I can intern at a great studio and hope to be like their minimum wage nighttime phones person in a few years, and then be their like minimum wage daytime phones person, and then be like their minimum wage tech, and then maybe 5 or 10 years after this, I'll be like their engineer in house or something, and then eventually basically get told, hey, go find work. You're on your own. You're good. We're bringing up the next poor schmuck. So I just saw the writing on the wall. I was like, oh, I want to have a family and maybe a little bit of money. What now?
Yeah, but God forbid.
So, and then all of this kind of starts to come together, because that up till that point, I was obviously clearly missing the mark in one major way or another. And then the first time I didn't feel like I was missing one of the marks was my wife. She actually went to USC Film School. And through her, I just started to understand like what post was. And then her first job was actually production, sound mixing on some things. But then she very soon was assisting a mixer on television post. And so then I got a real glimpse into it, and I was like, oh, it's something that basically uses a lot of the same tools and knowledge you're using to create music. You're just putting things together in a different order, and you're focused on the things that aren't just music, sound and dialogue, right? Yeah. And so, and we had learned a little bit about it at Citrus, and just all this sort of started to come together. So, and then the final pieces of the puzzle where I ended up working in a music store, and then teaching drum lessons at this music store as like sort of my compromise. Like, I can accept this if I have to have a quote unquote crappy job. This is I want. Like, I can be in a music store. Right. I can sell some instruments. I can teach some kids some drums. I could live with this. This is good. And then I use my spare time to take on projects and things, and get my Pro Tools chops up. And I just had a friend who just knew I had those skills. He knew that I had a decent ear and Pro Tools skills and the interest and the drive to do this. And he recommended me to a place that was looking for help with restoration, their audio restoration department. And so I started doing that. I did that for like kind of roughly a year. I did some audio restoration, and it was a place that was in enough turbulence, like chaos, that I was soon in charge of the department, like in terms of technically, which was crazy looking back. Like I did not earn that, but that's where I was. And so I was literally writing the manual too. It's like there was none. Like there was so much turnover and chaos. I was like, if I leave soon, I want to leave something behind here. I want to make sure people like have some idea. I don't have to figure it out from scratch. So I was like writing manuals and procedures. I was like helping to bid jobs, interviewing potential engineers, like, and I was like, this is my first professional audio job.
I did something similar with the graduate assistantship. I left behind a GA handbook at the school.
Yeah.
I felt the same way. I was like, because I forget everything, I'm just going to put it all in this document. And then that became like, everybody go follow.
But it's a good feeling. It's like,
I don't know if
nobody else has to trip over their own feet going what's where and who's what.
And I didn't want anybody to say like, that guy gave me a really crappy handover. I wanted to be like, it's how I teach arranging, is like, make it not your fault.
Yes.
Put it in the chart.
Oh yeah. Arranging. Yes. Arranging in. So I guess it is mostly what would you call, I'm blanking on the part of the process where you were literally preparing score prep, right?
Oh, like music prep or engraving.
Engraving, all of that. Make it not your fault. Absolute clarity,
for real,
of intention.
Like students will be, it's like, well, I was like, so what are you going to do here? And it's just like, oh, I haven't thought about who's going to cue after that fermata or whatever. And it's like, well, just when in doubt, just write it above the bar,
Yeah.
Not my fault. It's in the chart.
God, especially, I mean, for composition, for art's sake, do whatever you want. See what the musicians do with it.
Sure.
That's part of the art. But boy, if you want to put out lots of money to get 80 top-notch musicians in a studio with like 10 engineers where you're paying like $50,000 an hour.
Exactly.
You probably don't want a lack of clarity. You probably
want. And that's honestly like, and I'm not just plugging the school that I teach at. It's like that's what the UNLV has kind of like more of a commercial mindset when it comes to that kind of thing, which I'm sure lots of schools do. Like Berkeley has
many should. I mean, that's where you quote unquote,
but it's like
make your money.
He's going to LA back and forth. Like a lot of the people in Vegas, LA is 5 hours away, so it's like a lot of them gig back and forth and are all over the place. So he's just trying to, Dave Loeb, he's like trying to prepare everybody for the professional side of it, not just like
good for
how
him
to express yourself.
Yeah.
Which I appreciated about the program.
Yeah.
Because that's very much, it's not that I have a problem with how, other schools might put a focus on musical expression or the art side of things, but it's, I think you need that plus how do I buy groceries and pay rent after I leave here? And,
the musical expression itself is not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and your story is very much like indicative of a lot of people of going like, well, what do I do now? And it's like you have this sort of wandering thing that so many people who do music first then go off and like, have to figure out this thing. And I'm like, why isn't that part of the curriculum?
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's, it's not, I don't want to appear like I'm just like whining about what, the choices I've made, because I have two jazz degrees, and it's like, well, you did it to yourself.
It is, it's a difficult major. Yeah, it's a difficult major to do anything with. It's very hard. But
no,
but I'm gonna venture a guess. It might have been a rewarding experience at times to actually be doing the work.
Well, and the thing is, I lucked into, I shouldn't say lucked, but I mean, like, I kind of squeaked into a career as a cruise ship musician.
Yeah.
And was able to, like, go and do that. And, like, I have no regrets about that whatsoever.
Yeah.
I was definitely sick of it by the time I left, but
sounds like a familiar story, yeah.
Got my wife, got my university application.
Did you get your wife on a cruise ship? Is that what happened?
Yeah. I'm the stereotypical show band musician who meets his wife, the dancer in the cast.
Wow, yes.
And then anyway, so you've already given me like everything in the world in this, but so I was just gonna say, like, you've in your ADR career you've first of all done a whole suite of worked on a whole suite of Seth McFarlane productions. The Orville, Cleveland Show, I think it said over 150 episodes of American Dad, over 250 episodes of Family Guy.
It's probably the reverse of that then.
Oh, is it?
Family Guy is probably the least, actually. So Cleveland Show would have been 88.
Oh,
Family Guy was probably 40. American Dad is probably over 200.
Oh, okay. Yep. So more on the American Dad. And then also, you worked on my favorite show of all time, the Cosmos remake.
Oh, yeah.
That it was McFarlane he was like the executive producer
He was an
on that or
AP,
something.
and also he had a definitely creative vision for kind of how that should be presented, and I think he might have had something to do with how the kind of making it a little bit of a modern sci-fi feeling to it, because I think you remember they were on this sort of a spaceship, right? Yeah,
the ship of the
I don't know the
imagination.
origin of that, but I just know that some of that, I think, was him and his aesthetic and his guidance, and he did some VO on it in some of the, when they do animated.
I remember,
bits.
some of the animated sections you could definitely. I'm like, that's definitely like Lois's dad.
Yeah,
but
my part of that was minimal, but it was really fun, and they did early recordings of Neil deGrasse Tyson doing his narration, and I'm not sure if any of those even made it to air or not, if they redid them all, but we recorded them as if they would be final, because if you can record that much stuff and get the actual guy to do it, let's do it right, and they did it right. So I don't know if they ended up wanting to redo it all or not, but it was fun. Just a few episodes worth of that. It was really good.
Well, even just and honestly, it's not to be like, kind of like starry-eyed looking at like you must be so grateful for your career or whatever. Like everybody has, like, your career is what it is, and it's like you have good days and bad days and like appreciation and like that was a shitty day, whatever. But like I think it's really cool that you just even get to graze past Kanye West and Neil deGrasse Tyson and
it's
all these.
It's kind of absurd,
really cool
actually.
people.
Yeah. No, I don't get starstruck easily, which is again good in this career, I think. But even then, Weird Al Yankovic comes in.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my God, I was like singing your songs when I was like 6, and it was everything.
As long as you're doing that in your head and not like,
I don't know. I might have had a big stupid grin on my face with that one. I don't know. I hope not.
Do you know who Chris Potter is? The saxophone player. He's one of the best jazz saxophone players in the world, and I met him at my saxophone teacher at the time brought me to he was playing at a club in LA.
Cool.
And I got to just kind of like walk up and awkwardly go like, I gotta take a picture. And it was like I'm like, if I know that I'm just another stranger and he probably won't remember that, and that's fine, but I was just like, there's no way I'm gonna be comfortable doing this, so I'm just gonna fumble my way through it and get a picture with Chris Potter.
Yeah.
So like all the McFarlane stuff, you've recorded real quick: Whoopi Goldberg, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bryan Cranston, Mariah Carey, will.i.am, Adam West, Jane Lynch, Mickey Rooney, Nicki Minaj, Flea, and Carrie Fisher. Yeah, man, that's...
will.i.am, did he... I don't know that I got to record him. I think he wanted to do his all at home. A number of really great musicians. Weird Al, just doing their thing in front of the microphone there.
Yeah. Who was your favorite to meet?
Oh, boy. Yeah, it could have been Weird Al. Because I'm just a big dork, and I just respect like him being so good at what he does, and having what appears to be a ton of fun with it for such a long career.
Right.
That's one of the big ones. Mark Hamill is wonderful. I've loved working with him.
His Twitter is one of my favorites.
It's hard to have a favorite. I had an amazing conversation about business and science and life with will.i.am. I got to hear George Takei talking to kind of a few of us just sitting around on the couches about his family and the internment camps, and like getting taken away as a kid.
His career, his life, man, that's
just amazing. And it's funny, you see it on Twitter or you see it in an interview, and then you're like, wow. But there's always that extra something when the air is moving and somebody is just there in front of you telling you, here's what happened to me.
I like that. The air is moving. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
visceral.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And they were just, even sometimes some of my favorites are just some of the regular voice actors who, most people won't know, but they're just such wonderful people, and kind of the highlights of my day. I always loved recording Rachel McFarlane and Wendy Shaw. Always loved recording Sanaa Lathan, and just all the on and on. Now I feel like I have to name everybody. If anybody hears this would feel left out. But yeah, just it's so many. Seth Green, when I got to record him, is just ridiculously hilarious human being. Yeah. Scott Grimes might be the person I consistently had the most fun with, and is a single individual who just always fun, and yet also always gave his all. Like he was always on, and he could give you, the word no 10 different ways, and they'd all be useful, funny, great reads of the word no.
Right.
Yeah. D. Bradley Baker, absurdly talented human, and very sharing and giving. And
no, that's awesome, man. That's
Kevin Michael Richardson. A lot of fun with Kevin Michael Richardson. I'm gonna stop now. All right.
I'm gonna research all of these people, and they'll all be guests on this podcast, and it'll all because of you.
I recommend it.
One last question, and then we will kind of close it out. But
cool.
I guess, what do you think? What do you anticipate, given the fact that like movies, TV, the way media is kind of like going, the form it takes, and as far as not even technology, but like how we consume media. What do you like, considering the fact that video games sort of like gross revenue overtook the film industry in, like, I think it was 2018. It kind of like passed by the film industry. What do you think about the future of how we're going to consume media?
I think that it's now evolving fast enough that it's actually going to be hard for us to predict. Yeah. Like, 10 or 20 years ago, you could make an outlandish prediction, but you could also just predict we'll have fancier video games, and that was right. I kind of think that 10 or 20 years from now, it may not be recognizable. AI is moving so fast, computing power is so enormous, the internet's getting so good, that it's probably actually really hard to imagine what's coming in 10 or 20 years.
Yeah, and I asked that just because the trend that I'm seeing, like within the recent decades, like you see, it's stuff that like my parents won't understand, like watching a Twitch streamer play a video game. It's like, so you're just watching a guy, he's playing a video game. Why don't you just play
That's one of the big ones. Yeah, I feel like I get it, but I still also don't get it. It's really weird.
Yes, yeah. I feel like we're kind of in the same camp there. We have Twitch streamers and then reaction videos, videos to reaction videos.
Yeah.
And then, like, I think what I'm seeing is just we all want to hang out with each other,
Yeah.
and it's sort of, I think that's probably why video games are kind of like as big as they are globally, just because everybody can connect so easily nowadays, and it's in a way that's like you're also being entertained in addition to the social aspect of it.
Yeah. I think it's fair to assume that, because you're right about that wanting to be connected and wanting to sort of be able to see your friends and all that sort of stuff. It does lead you to believe that, I think with the way technology is capable of now, that maybe 10 or 20 years from now, we are all playing very, I was going to say hyper immersive, but that's not, I don't think it's the immersion that's hyper. It's the reality of it. It's the detail and the capability. Immersive is the hardest thing to do. It just requires the most computing power to have an entire world built around you where you can literally go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, that's what happens. Computing power gets better and better and better, and at some point, like, TV is already better than our eyes, right? You can increase the resolution all you want. I'm not going to see it anymore.
4K.
Yeah, I'm not going to see it. What was the thing
about there's like an 8K TV?
There's 8K.
It's like there's no point.
No, 8K is for projecting it on the side of a building, basically. 8K is for a billboard size.
Yeah.
I don't need 8K. No, and then
projected on the moon.
And we, long ago hit the cap with audio. 192 is better than anybody ever needs, and not even 96 is like, we're 96 lets you have a more realistic representation of a waveform at a high frequency, but that's it. And then 192 is just, you just splitting hairs in a way that we just don't hear it. And so we're getting to the point where the technology will be sort of maxed out in terms of it can do anything we need it to do to create a world around us. And so then I think it just becomes a lot of things where we're experiencing fun, unique things within a world. whether it's an augmented, whether it's, you go around our world and literally just what we know as augmented reality now, things can be in our world, right? Or whether it's entirely VR the way we know it now, but it can be, again, super realistic. You can basically see your friends there. You could see, Spider-Man there, or the monster from Stranger Things can just be there. It's not going to be like, oh, that's they did a good job making that look sort of realistic. Like it would be realistic at that point. So it's that, I think getting it's kind of the final frontier maybe for video games in a way. Yeah. One final frontier is getting VR and immersive experiences to be as quality as just the flat TV is right now.
Right.
I just remember
HBO series
looking
in
at
your living room.
Yeah, most of us had a day when we went to a Best Buy or whatever and saw TVs and looked and like, I feel like I'm looking through a window, not at a TV.
Yeah.
And I just that day will come soon with VR, and I think that's just going to blow some people's minds what we can do.
I played Majora's Mask, and I was like, whoa!
Yeah, right?
N64. First time I saw, what was that game? The parasailing game?
Yeah.
It was in a Blockbuster.
Oh, yeah.
And it had like the N64 controller with the accordion thing coming out.
Right.
It's just stationary. Yes. You got to play, what the hell was that called?
I can't remember, but yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It does. The thing is, I mean, we started with Pong. And black and white film with no sound, and we were entertained.
Pong.
We were entertained with that. It's okay. Yeah. So it isn't that's the answer to everything or the end goal. We can you can then go and be in a Super Mario game immersively, right? The possibilities become so endless because you essentially have the entire history of all entertainment.
Yep.
And the absolute utmost of current technology, if you want to push it that direction. And, of course, then that allows your imagination to invent things that have never existed, before in any other realm you want. So, I think there's going to be a lot of I think that is the future. It's funny because it still struggles with you still struggle with needing heavy goggles and immersive sound, like all that stuff. That's just still to be overcome, and maybe it'll never be truly universal. I don't think we'll all be walking around with one of those on our face all the time or something, But just in terms of entertainment, I think that's one of the
JSO, Jeremy Scott Olsen,
Mr. Spicer,
you're the man.
You're the other man.
On the other end of this call, yes, I am.
Yes.
Anything you want to plug at all? Your website, upcoming projects, the fine details of an NDA.
So if you're 18 or older.
Here we go. This is going to take a turn now.
Minx, HBO Max. The show is basically all about nudity and sex, but it is hilarious show. A lot of fun to work on. If you like, and so I did some ADR editing on that. I did some ADR editing and supervising on You, and if you're a You fan, the season 4, I don't know how you'll feel about it. I think some people may be put off, but I think some people may like it.
I feel even like my wife watches that show. It's the stalker one, right?
Yes. Yes. And I also think that some people who didn't watch previous seasons of You might also like this. Like feels different, but it's really good. It's really neat. I had a real fun time working on that too. So, and also everybody just be nice to each other, please.
Yeah, be nice to each other.
Be good to each other. That's better than nice.
Be good to each other. Don't freak out when you see a celebrity. They're just people.
They're just humans.
They want to be treated like human beings.
Except for the ones that are lizards in people suits. Right?
Which, if you had to put a percentage on that, how many do you think are lizards? 11% of all celebrities are lizard people.
Heard it here first. Yeah. Thank you for having me, man.
Dude, it's been a pleasure. We did it. A big, huge thank you to the man, Jeremy Scott Olsen, for donating a slice of his very busy schedule to talk to little old me. Relevant links are in the show notes, including JSO's website and links to our game Hair Runner. But most importantly, a reminder to any serious musicians out there looking at record labels. Jeremy's Bad Self label is looking for applicants in the pop, rock, video game, TV, film, and modern classical genres. So go to badselfmusic.com and click on the Contact Your Bad Self tab. And again, highly recommend working with this man. He's a good dude. And now it's time for me to climb into this submarine that has arrived just in time to take me to episode 13. Submarines are terrifying claustrophobia death traps that no human should ever enter. But I'll do it for you, my audience. I'll see you in the next episode.